And for the record, I have to state that we do have a quorum of the board present, and I'm going to call the meeting to order now. I'm going to ask that everybody speak very loudly and clearly during the meeting, and that if for some reason you lose transmission, we need to make sure we keep a quorum so we can move forward with the business we do today. And if you do lose transmission on this Microsoft application, call in right away. And if everyone's ready with a pen and paper to call staff and let them know, I'm going to give you that phone number. It's 804-382-0381. All right. And everyone keep your microphones off when you're not speaking. And remember, as Ms. Sorokin said, you have to keep your screen on. All right. And we've also got, is our most recently appointed member here from the law enforcement, our law enforcement member, Officer Alan Evans. Welcome to the board, Alan. Glad to have you. Now we're going to get started with the meeting. First order of business is adoption of the agenda of the meeting. Members should have received the draft agenda from Ms. Sorokin. Are there any additions or changes to the draft agenda? Please let me know. If you do have any agendas, or if you do have any changes to the agenda, please state your name clearly. Okay, I'm not hearing any. Can I have a motion to adopt the draft agenda?
So move.
Could you state who moved that?
Kristen
Ms.
Howard.
I tell you what, because everyone wants to be polite and wait and let someone else speak, for things that seem like they're not contested, Ms. Howard, could I ask you to make motions today?
Absolutely.
Unless you have a problem with it, obviously. And
I have no issues and happy to do it.
Thank you. And Mr. Meyer, would you mind making seconds on things?
Sure.
That way people don't have to feel like they have to jump to their microphone button when we're sitting here in an awkward silence when I ask for a motion. And of course, obviously, Ms. Howard, Mr. Myers, if you don't agree with the motion, I'm not expecting you to make that. But a lot of this stuff I think is fairly standard, and the Forensic Science Board, they do a great job with this. So we don't change it all that much. All right. Next, I need an approval of draft minutes for the April 23rd meeting.
So
you should have gotten those. Ms. Howard made a motion to approve them. Do I have a second?
Second, Rich Myers.
Mr. Meyer has a second. So, you know what? I'm not sure. Mason, do you know or Director Jackson, do you guys know the actual rules? Do we have to go through the entire board for ayes and nays? Or could I say if you are opposed or have to abstain, just one person could speak up and we can assume everyone else is an aye? I'm not exactly sure how our rules are on a board like this. Because I know when we're all in person, everyone just kind of says aye, and whoever's recording the vote just puts down everybody as an aye.
Chairman Miller, there's nothing in the bylaws about that. With the virtual meeting, if you'd like for votes that have real effect on policy matters, I would suggest doing a roll call vote. But previously, you have done what you suggested already. You've done that in the past.
Gotcha. All right. If we have a big issue like that, Ms. Sorokin, I'll have you do a roll. I assume, Ms. Sorokin, you're the one that will do the roll call votes for us.
That is correct.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I don't think this is a roll call vote. We have a motion and a second for the draft, or for the draft minutes of April 23rd. All in favor will say aye. Aye. I hear a bunch of quiet ayes. And is anyone opposed?
We have to do this. It's ridiculous that it takes so long to do this.
You're on microphone, Mr. Hu Young. I agree. It's ridiculous how long it takes, but all right. We're going to move on to chair reports. Director Jackson.
All right, thank you. Let's see, trying to, 1 second while I All right, well, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Hopefully I've now shared my screen.
And it is up.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks for being here today. Hopefully we can get people's microphones and cameras straightened out while I'm talking. But just to move us along, I wanted to give an update on our central laboratory capital project. It is getting to be more and more of a laboratory, and so it's very exciting. We're still on schedule for completion at the end of 2025, which will allow for move-in in the first quarter of 2026. Those are calendar years. Some major milestones, we have definitely started thinking about how we're going to move because we have a lot of scientific equipment, we have a lot of evidence, and just a lot of supplies and all sorts of stuff that will need to be moved to the new building. And so we have contracted with a move management company, and we've begun meeting with them to come up with a plan so that they can get a better understanding of what actually will be needed, so that we can do a procurement for a moving company to help us with a lot of the different materials. A lot of the scientific instruments, they will need to be moved by the vendor of that scientific equipment so that we don't void our warranties or our service contracts. And so that is something that is being worked on as well. They continue to power up the different mechanical systems, and they are going to be moving their construction trailers, which they've had this huge construction trailer that has been there for their on-site work. And they're moving that away so that they can actually work on the site prep for parking and that kind of thing. So they have been working on the medical examiner Sallyport driveway, which is where the bodies will be delivered. And there's the specialty flooring has been installed, and it's covered up now so that you can't see it. You can see in some of the pictures on the next page. Let me go ahead where the floor in that picture in the upper left-hand side, they are keeping them protected while they are moving in various and sundry other casework. And so at the top left, that is the drug lab. So, and the top right is the toxicology lab where they're installing the fume hoods into the laboratory space. At the last meeting, I showed you casework being installed on the second floor and the first floor. So we've gotten to where we've moved up to the third floor because they're kind of, doing it as a, in process. Down on the bottom left, that is the those are the body racks for the state anatomical program that are being installed into a large body cooler for the medical examiner. And then that bottom right picture is the casework being installed in the digital and multimedia evidence lab. So a couple other things, they're certainly working on those chemical and biological safety hoods. They're all on site and in the process of being installed. And we've also received, and they have installed a 6,000 gallon liquid nitrogen storage tank so that, and we're leasing that tank so that we can provide the high purity gas to our scientific instrumentation from one space and not have to have a whole bunch of different tanks around the building. So it is definitely moving forward. With our accreditation, I've reported before that we had asked and agreed to move up our full assessment schedule from next spring to this fall. So our full assessment is scheduled for September 15th through the 19th. Our conformance file will be submitted later this week. And the conformance file is basically where there are all of the different criteria. There's there's hundreds of criteria that we have to meet as part of the accreditation. And so we have to fill out this conformance file, basically giving a breadcrumb trail to the assessors of how we think we meet those criteria. And then that will be assessed when they come on site. We continue to provide agency outreach. Since the last board meeting that I reported on, I've spoken at the Virginia Sheriff's Association, went down and spoke at the Southwest Virginia Law Enforcement Summit that was held in Blacksburg, and spoke with the Virginia Association of Commonwealth Attorneys meeting June 18th. Both of those were so that we could provide information about the fact that we are currently not doing comparison work in our firearms section in the Western Lab. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. And then Jenny Duffy, our supervisor of our breath alcohol section, she provided information at the new judges orientation. Speaking of breath alcohol, this has been a super long procurement process, but we are getting towards the end of being able to officially award the contract. We had done the notice of award back in March. The contract, it's been a kind of a multi-step process, and it has come back from VETA review now, and we are adjudicating a few comments from that and have to adjudicate them with the vendor. And so hopefully, I was told yesterday that we believe that we're about 95% done with this this part of the contract drafting and agreement. And so hopefully we will be able to purchase these instruments officially sooner than later so that we can begin doing the testing for them and developing the training for law enforcement. So I had mentioned firearms. We did send out on June 12th a new firearms customer notice. We had sent out one previously, just noting, and that was back in February, noting that we had some capacity issues and that our turnaround times were lower than, or were higher than most people would prefer. And unfortunately, our situation became worse in that regard when we suspended our firearms comparisons in the Western Laboratory. So right now, firearms comparisons we've notified our accrediting body, and they have removed those from our scope of accreditation for the Western Laboratory. We had a small section, and currently we only had one examiner who was working those types of cases in the Western Laboratory, and due to a corrective action, we have taken that person off of casework. We've also made notifications to both law enforcement and to Commonwealth attorneys for any cases that that individual has worked where they had made an identification in a comparison exam. And so all cases that are being submitted to Western are being transferred to other regional laboratories. And we wanted to just let everyone understand that that we were having further delay. We were going to continue to prioritize cases as we had identified in the prior notice. And we thought it was important to notify everyone in the criminal justice system, including the courts, of these potential delays. So on the presentation is a link to that notice, which is posted on our website. So where are we with our firearms staffing? So you can see that we actually have enough FTEs in firearms to be able to do the work that comes in the door. Currently, we are, notwithstanding our Western issue, we are in the same position as many other forensic labs across the country, which is that there is a shortage of trained firearms examiners. And the training program for firearms examiners is a 2-year process, and that's a national average, or a national kind of training program outline. And so we do have 4 folks that are in the training process that are all about halfway or a little more done, and we've got 4 more in the hiring process, one of which we just in Eastern, we just had someone accept a position just yesterday. And then our forensic scientist NIBINs, we have 2 new ones in our Eastern laboratory. So you can see that we are only at 62% capacity for doing those comparison exams with the full scope forensic scientists. We also had sent out a notice in early June about some capacity enhancements for our DNA section. This is a section where we have been working on increasing our capacity so that we, due to increased submissions over time, so that we would be able to provide better service. We did sign our outsourcing contract with Bodie Cellmark Forensics for non-persons cases that we will be sending. We've actually already sent 200 cases to Bodie from the Western Lab in June, and 100 cases got sent from our Central Laboratory last week. And so we are using that to hopefully help us dig out of our backlog as we move forward with some of our other capacity enhancement things. We have also in this notice talked about how we are changing which probabilistic modeling software we are going to be using in certain instances for mixtures that are 2 or 3 persons. And the benefit of changing is that the STR mix, which we will be moving to, uses a lot less computer time. When we were using TrueAllele, generally those samples take 2 to 3 days of just computer chugging time, where the computer is just working through all of the calculations. So the STR mix is far faster on the computer. And also we have now trained examiners in each laboratory to perform this, and we have the goal of getting all of our examiners trained on STR mix, and that should also make the throughput faster, because before with TrueAllele, all of the examiners were in the Central Lab, and so everything had to be transferred to Central, and we had far less people that were able to do that work. The last thing that was not in this notice, but is good with capacity enhancement, is that our cohort of forensic biologists that are going to make up our new PERC processing unit that will be triaging and developing the profiles from all PERCs. They have all finished their training and are getting going. So we are hopeful that that also will streamline some biology work so that we can get those results back faster, especially in sexual assault cases. We also just recently sent out the notice on June 30th about the DNA collection kits for victims of strangulation. In the Code of Virginia, those are called trace evidence collection kits, but we have renamed them neck and fingernail kits so that it's more clear as to what these kits are to be used for. And so they are designed to sample DNA primarily from the necks and fingernails of victims. And we will be sending those out to healthcare provider collections sites in the same way that we send out PERCs. We had a contract with the vendor, Certi, which is the same one that makes other kits for us. But they have had an issue with getting all of the pieces that need to be put into the kits. They are currently waiting for envelopes that are particular to this kit. Excuse me. And they were supposed to be shipped last week to us, and we are hopeful that they will be shipped soon. We've sent an email out to all of the healthcare providers that do normally request PERCs so that they understand that, and we let them know that we will share more information as soon as they're available so that we can get those out. And we also shared information about how they might use materials out of current PERCs if they need to collect this type of evidence now. I've talked several times about our pre-log update, which is for our laboratory information management system that will allow law enforcement to enter the information about the evidence prior to coming on site to deliver that evidence to the lab. And so the pre-log has fields that's kind of the same generally as the paper RFLE. We are developing and are pretty close to finishing our online training that will be available for law enforcement. And we do initially plan to launch this in September. We have been beta testing it with several different agencies, and we've also worked with the medical examiner's office to beta test with them. There are a couple with the introduction of pre-log, there's going to be a couple of changes to how our reports look. One of the main changes is that when evidence is entered through the pre-log, it gives a sequential item number for each item that is entered to make sure that there's no duplication of item numbers, since each piece of evidence has to have a unique identifier. And so if the agency calls something item 7 and it's the first one that's put in, that will be item 1 on the forensic report. And so in order to be able to, for clarity of knowing that the agency number is the same as the forensic science number, both will be listed on the certificate of analysis. One other thing is that the item description will be the item description that the law enforcement agency has put in. So if there is clarification that needs to be made on that item description, like maybe that plastic bag with white powder also had 2 pills that were also in there with it that we didn't find until we opened it, that would be clarified down in the results. Or we would create a sub item of some of the extra evidence so that that would be listed separately. So we will have a statement on the certificate of analysis that notes that those item descriptions were put, that those were created by the submitter and not by DFS. So I talked at several meetings now, we've talked about some of our turnover and vacancy, particularly in the Northern Lab. And I had talked about the fact that our human resources section was going to be working on a compensation study. So we did send salary surveys to 24 laboratories that are kind of proximate to DFS. And we received 8 replies. 4 of those respondents were kind of in the region of the Northern Laboratory, and 2 were federal laboratories that are also in that region. Both the DEA that has a laboratory in Largo, Maryland, also has a laboratory up in Northern Virginia near Dulles Airport. They responded and tried to cater their numbers to those particular lab areas, since they have labs across the country. And then we also got a respondent from the Secret Service lab, and they were the ones that hired all 3 of our latent print examiners out of the region, or out of our Northern lab. We also looked at the 2023 ASCLD salary survey, which is the American Society of Crime Lab Directors, which was a national survey and had approximately 80 respondents in that survey. And we focused on looking at forensic scientists, toxicologists, the forensic lab specialists, which are the lab support folks, and our evidence specialists. We also looked at the cost of living, just using normal cost of living indicators. It's interesting that Manassas actually looks like it's higher than Washington, D.C., but that's because it does look at some of the counties around Prince William as well as Prince William proper. But you can see that Manassas is certainly higher than all of the other locations where we have a laboratory. And so looking at the surveys and in the study results, we did note that all of the Northern salaries for the position types. And we looked at the minimums for those position types, because that's generally where we bring in, folks when we hire them initially. But they were considerably low compared to those other labs in the northern region. Looking at the other statewide salaries, some of the, a lot of the mid-range forensic scientist salaries looked like they were on target. However, our entry-level trainee position was well below the survey minimum, as well as our laboratory support staff, those laboratory specialists, and the evidence receiving positions. Evidence receiving is something that we had worked on actually for the last couple of years, trying to increase their salary, as well as looking at a different way of classifying them to help with retention, because we were having a lot of turnover in evidence receiving. So currently we're working on a proposal for what a budget request might look like to address these inequities and to help with recruitment and retention. And so I don't have something formal because we just got these results sort of collated. And so I don't have anything to present as to what our actual plan would be. It's a little complicated for the way our scientists, we have a salary plan that is for our scientists that includes ways to increase your salary over time, depending on different things that you do to make yourself a more valuable employee. That's a plan that was put into place back in 2005 when the Crime Commission was originally doing their study on our salaries back in the day. But with that salary plan, everything sort of cascades off of that trainee salary. And so, if our trainee salary is significantly low and that needs to be adjusted, we need to figure out how that cascades and trying to make that make sense with the market data. So that'll be something that we continue to work on as it's getting to be time where we're going to be asked for decision packages. And so we'll need to have this put together. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know that's had a lot of discussion in the past.
Linda, it's Kristen. I just had a quick question because we're dealing with some of the same challenges in regard to hiring and turnover and vacancy with attorneys. It's a national issue as well. And I'm wondering, I saw a grant announcement that went out, I believe from DCJS, in regard to offering some public service, support for the time they spend as public servants and paying off their student loans. Is that something that has been explored?
That is a good question. I'm fairly certain that we have we have people that work for us that have gone through that federal process of trying to have loan forgiveness after a certain number of years of public service. But I know just from, listening to the news that seems like it might not be an easy process for people. And so I didn't see that and would I'll definitely go and look. Sounds like that's something from Chairman Miller's shop that I should look for.
I can forward it to you. It wasn't too long ago because I know that we're dealing with this issue just generally with other entities. And then another quick question. I see that you've done a lot of surveys. Have you surveyed your staff to see what benefits and compensation and different alternatives to them may be important? I know that was something that came up in some of our other surveys dealing with other agencies and these same type of issues, because certainly salary is really important, but we also found that there were other things that were very valuable to employees as well, in addition to salary. I'm just wondering if that is something that you all have done, is to see what other perks may be available that may not cost as much.
Right. That is no, we have not done that officially. I know that certainly our lab director up in Northern has had conversations with staff because it's been, of concern, certainly up in the Northern Virginia lab, but we haven't done an official survey. So thanks for that idea. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I needed Chairman Miller to recognize folks. Delegate Watts?
Delegate Watts, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead and do that yourself, Director Jackson.
Okay,
I think
thank
it'd
you.
be smoother.
Trying to,
Delegate Watts, your microphone's still off.
yeah. Huh. Let's see. Hold on one second. I'm going to,
Can you type in a message, Delegate Watts, for your question? Or if not, I'm sure it's something that staff can answer for you later if you need an answer to something.
hold on. I'm going to, okay. Can you try one more time? I just elevated you to a presenter. You can try one more time to,
Yes, now I'm on. Thank you. Basic question, timing of all of this. Do I understand that you're working to have it part of potentially in the governor's budget as opposed to a budget amendment?
we would certainly, that's how that's how generally budget requests come from us as an agency, is that would, that we would put forward a decision package that would go to the secretary's office for approval. And then it would then be up for consideration of being put into the governor's budget. Obviously we lose control.
Right, but
During
your
that process.
timing is such that it can still be part of the governor's budget based on what you said you're working on.
That is correct, and that is definitely our goal, is to try, it's to make sure that we have at least something to put forward that is well documented for consideration.
Thank you.
And can I just ask, Farrell, would you mind please just elevating all board members up to presenter mode so that they don't
Yes.
have this mic issue?
Absolutely. We'll do that now.
While we're on that administrative task, could I please ask, I know there's a couple of you that have technical issues with your camera, but the legislature has decided as of July 1 that for these meetings to be official, you have to keep your camera on. I know I'll give you guys that are sitting in your bed without a shirt on a few minutes to get dressed before you turn your camera on. But
Please.
yes, please. But that is the law now. For us to maintain our quorum, we can't be on these meetings with just our initials showing in our camera screen. We have to be, your face has to be visible. So I would appreciate if everyone could at least put your screen up. Thank you. Go ahead, Director. Sorry I interrupted your.
No, that is perfectly fine. Moving to case statistics, just a reminder and a link to where you can find our case statistics dashboard if you're ever interested in our case statistics in between meetings. But our workload statistics for the second quarter of 2025 were just finalized. And so we're still doing pretty quick turnarounds in our controlled substances or seized drugs section with 34 days as an average. Our digital and multimedia, that seems to always be a bit high because of the average of things that we're working through, some old things. Firearms, I've already talked about quite a bit, forensic biology as well. And then trace evidence is our other one where the turnaround time is higher than it has been. We do have quite a few folks in trace evidence that are training on a different subdiscipline, so that we can backfill from where we have lost folks through either retirements or promotions. And we have a new staff member actually that just started or is just starting this month. So again, we do have the correct level of staffing in trace evidence. So I'm not going to go through each of these, but they're just for your trend analysis are available for each of the sections, and so that you can see those. With toxicology, our turnaround times have dropped down to 45 days on average, which is good. We did just renew our MOU with the Western or with the medical examiner's office to allow for the Western section or their district office to outsource suspected overdose cases to a private laboratory through December 31st, and that we are providing reimbursement for that testing as we are working to train 2 folks out there. And that was trace evidence. For budget and resources, this is about the same that we our current staffing. We have 324 staff members on general fund that are currently with us, and 17 non-general fund, and that all of our general fund positions are in recruit. And then just with the 2025 budget, we had over $5 million that remained at the end of the fiscal year. And there's 2 major reasons for that. One, we had the carryover funds from the previous fiscal year that were there to pay for those breath alcohol instruments. And because they were not delivered by June 30th, we will be asking to have that money carried over again so that we will not have to finance those instruments. And then the other big piece is that we were not allowed to make any prepayments to the internal agencies that we had generally been making those prepayments to in the past. Normally, we would have prepaid our VITA fees, which is about $2 million or so. We would have done that in June, but no agencies, I believe, were allowed to make prepayments this year. So that, and we normally also prepaid for rent on the parking lots in Eastern and for the facility that we are in here in Biotech 8. So because of that, we did have that amount remaining at the end of fiscal year 25. For the final budget of 2026, it is the same as where it was when I presented in April. It hadn't been finalized at that point, but we did get the 2 forensic scientists, one for Northern and one for Western. The one in Western has been filled and is, I think, starting on the 25th. And then we are currently still in the interview process for the Northern position. It also added our 2 new facilities folks for being able to handle the almost double square footage of the new building. And those people have started. And we are in the interview process or in the screening and interview process for that new senior legal assistant to assist Ms. Jenkins with the Mary Jane Burton project. And then the last thing I just wanted to update you on is where we are with our federal grants. You have approved us to apply for, all the grants that we have. This is normally the time when we'd be asking for approval for our next year of our block grants. The DNA capacity enhancement and backlog reduction, or CBER grant, and the Coverdell grant. The DNA capacity CBER grant, that we have 6 FTEs on that, plus it pays for a lot of equipment and supplies. And then the Coverdell grant, that is where we get most of our money for our continuing education for our scientific staff. And so, and the values are there on the slide. So the scuttlebutt in the forensic community is that those for, solicitations for this year are still expected to come out at values of what we have seen in the past, but that there is significant doubt about or unknownness for what it would be for the year after that. We have not yet seen those solicitations, and so it's something that I think we certainly need to continue planning for. Let's see, Delegate Watts had a question. Does not being allowed to make prepayments mean that essentially the 12-month fiscal year budget is in fact only being drawn down for 11 months? Well, I mean, we did pay for things in June, for things that we had purchased. I think that the administration thought, or at least, and I shouldn't speak because I am not in the finance, but it seemed that they were interested in paying for services in the year in which they are generated. So us prepaying would be paying for services that we would receive in fiscal year 26 and in fiscal year 25. And so this moves that payment to within the year when the services would be provided.
I will only respond that I will certainly be looking at this because that's a understandable logic, but if your budget has been adopted for a certain amount, it's sliding money that is still a real expense that will look like a surplus in one year and will be a deficit in the next. Because now, anyway, I will be looking at this, especially since you say it's involved many agencies as to what this means in the actual end of year balance.
Thank you. All right, well, that is all that I had. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any others.
Thank you, Director Jackson. We appreciate the report. Very detailed as always. Another brief reminder, because we're going to be coming up on a vote here soon. Please, if you can, if your technology allows it, to turn your camera on. Again, it's not my preference. It's actually state law now. It's not my preference or Director Jackson's preference that we be able to see your smiling faces. It's actually in the state code that for this meeting to be official, we have to have your cameras on. And again, not our call. That is the state government's call. I'm going to move into old business. Ms. Jenkins, can you give us an update on the Mary Jane Burton cases?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor.
Just a brief update on where we are with the Mary Jane Burton notifications. As the board is aware, DFS at the behest of the SAC and the board has undertaken notifying all of the affected convicted defendants regarding concerns on Ms. Burton's work. As Director Jackson indicated, we have a new position that was granted by the General Assembly, a legal assistant senior, that's going to be assisting me in making those notifications. But we did not, and that's in the interview process, but we didn't want to wait until that position was filled to begin to get these notifications out. So what we have been working on with the assistance of Christina Arrington, who has just been invaluable to the department. She's a data person with the Crime Commission that you all have heard from previously. is working through what offenders we do know were convicted. As you all are aware, there's information that we're lacking in some of these cases or many of these cases regarding whether there were convictions, but we know there are about 1,140 approximately where we have convicted status verified. So we have been diligently working on that. We go through and pull whatever PII might be in the case file. To some extent, we may have from the PC project arrest cards that give us a lot of PII. In some instances, we may have the court orders, and back in the day, the court would put at least the date of birth typically in the conviction orders. And we're utilizing that and Lexis Public Records to determine first whether or not we can determine whether the person is alive or deceased. And if they are deceased, that is noted. And then if we are able to locate a current address or as current address as we can find, we are sending out letters that have been pre-approved by the Scientific Advisory Committee, and the board has seen those as far as defendant notifications. To date, I have sent out 427 letters. We've determined about 400 suspects are now deceased. 415 suspects are now deceased. So we're right at a little over 70% of those 1,100 plus convicted offenders have been notified or are deceased. We'll continue to work on that. Once we get through the batch where we have the verified conviction information, we'll then be in a position of waiting on the Crime Commission to work with the clerks to determine the conviction status of the remaining offenders that are named suspects. It does not make sense to duplicate efforts. We're just overloading the clerks if we do so. So we will wait on the Crime Commission assistance for that. And you know, to date, we've had about 26 letters come back as an incorrect address. So not that many out of the 400 plus that we sent out. I get daily phone calls from individuals that want additional information or are, you know, not really understanding the contents of the letter. So we go about explaining that and encourage them to seek legal advice if they have the need for that. And so that's where we are and where we'll continue to work through until the October meeting, and we'll bring you up to speed again then. And I think the Crime Commission staff will be presenting as well at that point.
Thank you, Counselor. Any members of the board have any questions for Ms. Jenkins? I don't mean to call you out, Ms. Howard. Do you have anything to add to this right now, or do you just want to wait till October?
Nothing to add other than DFS has been wonderful to work with, and we'll provide a presentation in October.
Very good. All right, moving on to new business. I'm going to call on Deputy Director Byrd to discuss a request for the board to appoint a new secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elise Strobel is the board's current secretary, and good for her, but sad for us. She will be retiring later this year, so the board needs to appoint a new secretary, and Director Jackson recommends appointing Farrell Sorokin. Farrell has been working with Elise for several meetings. You all have been receiving emails from her. And just out of an abundance of caution, since it's a board appointment, we would suggest taking a roll call vote.
Okay, can I have a motion to appoint Ms. Sorokin as the board's new secretary?
So moved.
I have a motion by Kristen Howard and a second by Mr. Meyer and Mr. Hu Young. And we'll go with the roll call vote.
Okay. Officer Evans?
I vote for Ms. Hello, yes. Can you hear me?
We heard
He's
you.
muted. I see his face. Yes. Dr.
Okay,
Gormley?
yes.
Yes.
All right, 1 second. Okay. Colonel Hanley?
Yes.
Kristen Howard?
Yes.
Michael Hugh Young, that's a yes, I think. Yes, I see the hand waving. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Beth O'Halloran,
Yes.
and Dr. Maha,
Yes.
Rich Myers.
Yes.
Okay. Chair Miller,
Aye.
Senator Perry,
Yes.
okay. Robert Tracy,
Aye.
and Shane Wyatt. Mr. Wyatt?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. I can hear you now. And Delegate Watts.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is Carl
Okay.
Aid, and I vote yes as well.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haid.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that was not called that jumped on the call by any chance? Do you want to announce the result of the vote?
That's passed.
All right, it is passed. Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Harkin. All right, I'm going to move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public on here who would like to provide a comment? I'm hearing none. I'm going to move on to the next part of our schedule, which is confirming our next meeting date. Our next meeting date will be on October 8th, 2025. That will be in person, same bat time, same bat location. That's correct, right, Ms. Jackson? We're going to be right there with you guys at 9:30.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And finally, can I have a motion to adjourn, Ms. Howard?
So move.
My favorite motion of the day. Is there a second?
Second.
A
And
second.
we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And I'm hearing none opposed. We're hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your summer.